Happy Christmas, guys. It's Mark, as you know, part-time British guy. Disney put out a movie called The Shepherds. Wait, is it The Shepherd or The Shepherds? Quick look here. The Shepherd. Bingo. Okay. It's Christmas Eve, 1957. A pilot runs out of fuel until a mysterious Good Samaritan helps him home. And again, that's the short version. I'll go over what I love about the movie and what I didn't like about the movie. Okay? As you guys know, that I'm writing a book about an American who joins the RAF during World War II and flies, believe it or not, Spitfires. So, the interesting thing was this involves an RAF pilot who's in Germany. Okay? And it's Christmas Eve, and you know he's stuck in Germany. He calls his family to say, "Hey, won't be coming home for Christmas." Blah 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 blah. But the pilot who was supposed to go out on patrol basically got injured in a snowball fight, so he's got to take his flight. So he gets into his Vampire, which was a really really awesome looking fighter, very very narrow, very thin, slender. I mean, the cockpit, literally, there's no room, there's no wiggle room in there. You're in there, and that's it. You know. So what basically happens is he leaves Germany, heading for England, and you know, his commanding officer basically tells him, you know, it's going to be a beautiful night. You know, clear skies. You're gonna have the sky to yourself. You know, it's Christmas Eve. You know, head on home, and you get to spend Christmas Day with your family. He's all excited. He gets into his Vampire, his fighter, and he takes off. And the interesting thing is that when he takes off, the tower lights at his RAF base in Germany go off because there's nobody else coming in. So it gives you that kind of like, yeah, there's going to be nobody around. It's Christmas Eve. Everybody goes home on Christmas Eve. You know, so nobody wants to be on duty. Yeah, there are going to be some people there, but, you know. So he flies off. Everything is fine. And then somewhere during the flight, his compass just goes wonky. Literally just spinning. You know, you'd think he was in the Bermuda Triangle or something. And of course, he does what a pilot's supposed to do. He pulls out his checklist. He looks for, you know, compass failure. You know, how to restart the compass or how to fix the compass. And you know, he's trying to figure like things out, and nothing's working. So he then begins to realize that fog is rolling in, which means that he can't see anything underneath him. He can't see anything below him. So if he hits land, he doesn't know it. If he could hit sea, you know, the ocean, and wouldn't know it. You know, simply because there's just this blanket of fog underneath him. You know, he's up here, fog's down here. Can't see anything. He can't see land. You know, so he tries various different channels to basically say, hey, I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble. Goes onto the emergency frequency, you know, gives his call signs. There's no response. So he begins to do a triangular like flight pattern, like hoping that somebody will see him, you know. And he's at the critical level. His fuel is at the critical level, and he starts writing down. I believe, I don't know if it's called a knee pad or whatever, but it's that white. It almost looks like styrofoam, but it's a way for pilots to kind of write notes down if they need to remember something. And what he's doing is he's writing down, like, to his girlfriend, you know, I'm sorry for all the things we can't get to do. I really love you. I'm sorry, you know, that kind of thing, because he realizes that he doesn't know where he is. He's somewhere over the North Sea. He could be miles off course and wouldn't know it. You know, he's praying to God that somebody will find him. Somebody on radar will see him, because he's doing this triangular search pattern, you know, kind of as a way of like telling people who are on radar, hey, I'm in trouble. Hi, and welcome to the Part-Time British Guy's Patreon page. If you'd like to support the channel, it would always be for the greater good.
The greater good.
You can do so for as little as $1 to up to $3. That's a way of showing your general support. To give you an example, $1 is equal to 1,000 views in YouTube. So it will be helping the greater good.
The greater good.
Now for $5, you get your name listed in the credits at the end of every video, as long as you support the channel. It helps the greater good.
The greater good.
Now for $7, you get your name listed in the credits, and you get a shout out from the Part-Time British Guy on his next video. And of course, $10. You get all the perks of the other tiers. You get your name in the credits, you get a shout out on his next video, and you get to basically suggest a video that he can do as long as it's British based and doesn't violate any YouTube community guidelines. After all, it's for the greater good.
The greater good.
So, what basically happens is he sees a plane, and when he moves down towards it, he tries to communicate with it, and nothing happens. And when he moves down towards it, it's a Mosquito. It's a World War II Royal Air Force Mosquito. It's a particular type of fighter. 2-engine, really, really nice machine. So the pilot calls to him and says, and talks to him, and with the RAF pilot and the Vampire tries to communicate back. The Mosquito pilot tells him, I can't hear you. Obviously you can hear me, so use your hand signals. And so the guy's holding up his map to try to say instrument failure. And he says, okay, how many, what's your fuel status? And he calls up 3 fingers to say, like, I guess it will be like 300 pounds or whatever. So he's only got a few minutes of fuel remaining. He's desperate. He has no idea how close to land he is. And the Mosquito pilot is like, all right, don't worry. We're going to get you home. Just follow me and stay on my wing. And he lands him in and he guides him in. And of course there's fog and stuff like that. And he sees these runway lights. And this guy is just happy to get on the ground. It's over. And the nice thing is that, like, when he lands, he's still got his hand on the control stick. And you could see him kind of like, almost like ungluing your hand from the stick. That's how hard he was holding onto it. And he's just relieved to be on solid ground. He's relieved to be alive because his fuel status went from like the 300 pounds when he first met the Mosquito pilot down to 0. I mean, he had nothing left as he was doing his approach. So he was as good as dead if he didn't find this guy. So car pulls up. Now, again, it's 1957. There's fog, and this old guy gets out, and he says, we heard you were coming in, so I flipped the lights on for you. I said, okay. And he introduces himself as Flying Officer so-and-so. And the guy shakes his hand and tells him that RAF Milton, which is where they are, is just like a supply depot now. It used to be a fighter base during the war, but now it's just like a supply depot, and it's pretty much just him today because it's Christmas Eve. So lo and behold, he gets into the base, and the paint is peeling off the walls, and obviously it looks run down, because nobody uses it anymore. Gets on the phone, tries to call his base to inform people where he is, and the phone just rings and rings and rings, and he can't get through. The guy finally gives him like a drink and says, this will warm you up because it's cold out there, it's Christmas. And he sees a picture of the pilot, the Mosquito pilot, that brought him in, and he's like, who is this guy? And the old guy explains that he was a Canadian who flew Mosquitoes, Pathfinders they were. And what he would do after he finished the mission is he would get his Mosquito refueled, fly out again, and try to see if he could find stragglers, because a lot of times during wartime there would be pilots who would have instrument failure, and if you like this particular pilot, your compass goes out, you're over the North Sea, there's no sight of land. If you don't know which direction you're going in, you may or may not hit land, and literally wind up ditching in the freezing North Sea. So the young pilot says, this is the guy that led me home. And the old man tells him, no, that's not possible. He died in 1943, Christmas Eve, like 17 years earlier, or whatever it was, 14 years I think it will be. So, the pilot's just kind of dumbfounded, and he thinks he hears the mosquito, and he was running outside, and actually it's a Jeep. And two Royal Air Force airmen come out, and they're like, we saw you on radar, and, we're glad you made it down safely. And the guy said, yeah, the old guy turned on the runway lights for me. And one of the airmen's like, sir, this base hasn't been used since the end of the war. And he turns around, and, when he first got to the base, you saw the Air Force logo, the Royal Air Force logo, and underneath it said RAF Milton. And you see now that the sign is literally, it's fallen off and it's on the side of the building. Several of the building windows are broken, and he looks at the car that the guy drove him from the runway back to the base. Is pretty much, it's dilapidated. It's obviously hasn't been used in years, and he just is kind of like looking a little dumbfounded. And the guy, one of the, I think it's a corporal or whatever, basically had said to him, it's like, come on, let's, it's Christmas, let's get you home. And that's how it ends. Now, the nice thing is, they do show like a mosquito flying, into the sunset, and it's John Travolta's character. And John Travolta only had a couple of minutes in this particular movie. But what was nice, and what I really, really liked, was they talked about the Shepards. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. The Shepards were pretty much guys who were pilots who basically would, after they finish a mission, they'd refuel and then go back out there looking for planes that had instrument failure or lost their way. I mean, you're in a dogfight with a fighter or something like that, all of a sudden you get instrument failure. You need someone to guide you home. And the number of pilots who would have been lost would have been much higher if it wasn't for these guys who were known as Shepards. The reason why I'm so emotional about this, not because of the heroic thing they did, it is the heroic thing that they did, but it is the fact that so many details are lost about World War II. We know about the battles, we know about the fight, we know about the tanks and the airplanes and the fighters and the bombers. We know about all these wonderful things, but these little things like the Shepards, like these guys who literally flew back out trying to find stragglers, it's lost to time. It's lost to history. It's a part of history that's lost. And when we started the story about Timothy with Consequences, about an American who joins the RAF during World War II, it's based off of a little known piece of history that is all but forgotten. So for me, it's very nostalgic. It meant something to me. Yes, I enjoyed the vampire. I loved looking at it. I enjoyed the the basic crux of the story. Do I think it could have been done better? Yes. It's only like 39 minutes in length. It's a great story, but there are some problems. You don't know too much about the pilot. You don't know too much about John Travolta's character, other than he flew mosquitoes in World War II and he went out in Christmas Eve 1943, never came back. What I didn't like is that there are certain things that are missed. Now, I realize it's a Disney movie, and that's great. Some people may not know about what a vampire is, because the guy says vampire, and not realize that the vampire is the jet that this particular pilot flew. The pilot also, identifies himself as flying officer so and so, and a lot of people may not know that flying officer is a rank. It's a junior grade rank. It's a junior officer rank. In the Royal Air Force, it's pilot officer, then flying officer, then flight lieutenant, or lieutenant as the proper terminology is used. So that was kind of like the part that I didn't like. That there were certain things that would be missed by the average person. Like one of the things that the old man tells this particular pilot, that he was this Mosquito pilot's Batman. And even I turned around and went, okay, what's a Batman? So I had to look it up, and actually I'm actually gonna read it to you, simply because I want to. Batman. Nope. Start here. Okay, a Batman. Okay, a Batman or orderly is a soldier or airman assigned to a commissioned officer as a personal servant. Duties: acting as a runner to convey orders from an officer to subordinates, maintaining the officer's uniform and personal equipment as a valet, driving the officer's vehicle sometimes under combat conditions, acting as the officer's bodyguard in combat, digging the officer's foxhole in combat, giving the officer time to direct his unit. Other miscellaneous tasks the officer does not have time or inclination to do. So a Batman is kind of like an officer's valet. The person that kind of takes care of his uniform and, drives him back and forth and stuff like that in his car and stuff. So the fact that he turned around and said, I was his Batman, it's kind of lost on an American audience. It wasn't so much lost on me, simply because I'm currently writing a book about an American in the RAF and the Royal Air Force during World War II. So for me, I was very intrigued. I was very interested. I just don't like that certain cues were missed. That was the only thing. I realized you couldn't make it like a 2-hour movie simply because you got this guy literally flying over the university, praying to God someone finds him, because he's having instrument failure, he's having electrical failure. So he's on the radio trying to call, and because he's got instrument failure, nobody can hear him. Goes on the emergency channel. He doesn't realize that nobody can hear him, and he's realizing that, hey, I'm at critical fuel status. Ditching is going to be imminent. I only got a few minutes left. And then all of a sudden this Mosquito shows up. So on a scale of 1 to 5, if I was to give it from 1 to 5 stars, because I'm a little bit prejudiced and I love things that involve the RAF in World War II, I'm going to give it 3 stars. Did I have any major complaints with it? No, aside from the fact that there are certain things that you're just not going to get if you're not British. And I kind of felt for that, because again, the channel is called The Part-Time British Guy. I'm learning stuff, such as, you don't say Merry Christmas, you say Happy Christmas. So that's my review. That's what we have. Happy Christmas. I'm Stise. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.